The cafe had never been this crowded. Dozens of wealthy business people in crisp suits filled the marble-floored lobby of Alcrest International Hotel, the kind of place where a single night's stay cost more than what most people earned in a month. Cameras flashed, voices echoed, silverware clinked against porcelain plates, and right in the middle of this glittering chaos stood her. A young black waitress, thin, tired, her apron slightly frayed at the edges, her dark curls tied back in a neat bun. Her hands trembled as she balanced a tray of drinks. She looked like someone who worked twice as hard as everyone else but was still invisible to the world. Her name was Amara, and at that very moment, every eye in the lobby was on her, not because of admiration, not because of respect, but because of the man towering over her, the man who was currently tearing her apart in front of everyone. Victor Hale, billionaire, tech mogul. A man who commanded boardrooms with fear and bragged about destroying people's careers just for sport. His suit alone looked like it cost more than Amara's family earned in a year. He leaned toward her with a sneer carved across his face, his voice loud enough to echo through the lobby. "Are you deaf?" Victor barked. "Or just, what's the word, uneducated?" A wave of laughter rolled through a group of businessmen behind him. Amara blinked rapidly, trying to steady herself, her breathing shallow, her fingers trembling around the tray. "Sir, I'm sorry, I didn't understand which drink you wanted first. If you could just—" Victor snatched the menu from her hand and waved it in the air dramatically. "You didn't understand because you can't understand," he shouted, turning deliberately so the whole lobby could witness his cruelty. "This," he continued, stabbing his finger at the air, "is what happens when you hire people who barely passed high school, people who can't speak properly, people who don't belong in places like this." A murmur of discomfort swept through the room. A few guests looked away, some whispered, yet no one stepped forward, no one defended her. Amara swallowed hard, her throat burning as humiliation washed over her like ice water. "Sir, please," she whispered, her eyes glistening. Victor leaned in closer, lowering his voice but sharpening the blade of his words. "You don't belong here." His smirk widened. "You're lucky you even have this job. A place like this needs class, real class, not some." He glanced at her skin, her worn shoes, her trembling hands. "Charity case." Amara's breath caught, whispers spread faster. "What's wrong with her? Why is he talking to her like that? She's just a waitress, maybe she messed up his order." Amara's heart pounded in her chest, but Victor wasn't done, not even close. He grabbed the tray from her shaking hands and raised it high enough for everyone to see. "Look at this," he boomed. "She can't even hold a tray steady, and she expects to work in a luxury hotel? Tell me, sweetheart, do you even speak English properly?" A few people winced, but still no one stepped up. Amara finally spoke, voice fragile but steady. "Sir, I speak English perfectly fine." Victor laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that bounced off the marble walls. "Oh, you speak English, really?" He exaggerated the words, imitating her accent in a demeaning way. "Say something intelligent then, go on. Impress me." Her cheeks flushed with heat, her lungs tightened. I don't have to prove anything to you," she whispered, her voice breaking. Victor's eyes gleamed. "Of course you do," he hissed. "People like you always do." A sharp gasp swept through the crowd. Amara felt her knees weaken. Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. The humiliation was suffocating. The room felt smaller, the stares sharper, her hands clenched at her sides, knuckles white. And then Victor stepped closer, invading her space, towering over her like a storm ready to destroy everything in its path. "You know what?" he said coldly. "I'm going to request the management to fire you right now because I can't stand incompetence, and I definitely can't stand someone like you pretending to belong in a world you clearly don't understand." Amara stiffened. Her breath vanished. Her world tilted. Fired. She couldn't, not today, not when she needed every cent. Not when her voice shattered as she tried desperately to speak. "Sir, please, please don't do that. My family." "Oh, don't start with the sob stories," Victor spat. "Save them for someone who cares." The tray clattered to the ground behind them, startling the guests nearby. Victor smirked, satisfied with the destruction he had caused. Amara's eyes darted around the room, dozens of faces watching, judging, ignoring. No one cared. Her chest tightened painfully, her vision blurred. The edges of the world felt like they were closing in. Victor turned his back to her, waving dismissively. Someone in the crowd muttered, "Man, that's too harsh." Victor shot back. "You run a billion-dollar empire and then tell me how to treat employees who can't even understand basic instructions." He faced the crowd again, raising his voice proudly. "Honestly, people like her shouldn't even be hired. Can she even speak anything besides broken English?" Laughter, sharp and cruel, echoed. Amara flinched. Another blow, another wound. And just when Victor opened his mouth to deliver an insult far worse than all the others, a voice cut through the air, a calm, steady, powerful voice. "That's enough." The lobby fell silent in an instant, every head turned. A figure stepped forward from the back of the crowd, a figure no one had noticed until now, tall, composed, dressed in a dark, impeccably tailored coat, silver blonde hair pulled back neatly, eyes piercing with intelligence and quiet authority. Stranger, a stranger who spoke with the confidence of someone used to commanding entire rooms. Victor frowned. "And who are you supposed to be?" The stranger didn't answer immediately. Instead, they looked directly at Amara, not with pity, not with judgment, but with warmth. "You don't have to endure this," the stranger said gently. Amara's breath trembled. Victor scoffed loudly. "Why don't you mind your own business? I'm dealing with my service staff." The stranger raised an eyebrow. "Your service staff?" "Yes," Victor snapped. "The uneducated ones. This girl can't understand the simplest instructions. Look at her, she barely knows English." The stranger's eyes sharpened, and the crowd leaned in. "Is that so?" the stranger said slowly, thoughtfully. Victor smirked, believing he'd won, believing the stranger agreed with him, believing he was right to humiliate her. But then the stranger stepped forward, placing themselves directly between Victor and Amara, blocking his hateful glare. Their voice dropped into a chilling calm. "You have no idea who this young woman really is." Whispers erupted again. Victor scoffed. "What, is she your friend or something?" The stranger's lips curled into a slow, confident smile. "No," they said, "something far more important." Victor frowned in confusion. The stranger stepped closer, nose to nose with him, and spoke in a voice that made the entire room go still. "A secret about her, one that is about to turn your entire world upside down." The crowd gasped. Victor blinked, caught off guard. Amara stared, confused and trembling, and then the stranger looked around the lobby, meeting the eyes of every witness. "You all think she's uneducated?" they asked, voice growing louder. "You think she belongs at the bottom?" The room held its breath. The stranger leaned in slightly, lowering their voice but raising the weight of their words. "You're all about to be proven very, very wrong." Victor's jaw dropped. And before he could demand an explanation, the stranger turned toward Amara with the gentlest smile, touched her shoulder, and said, "Let's start by telling them the truth, shall we?" The crowd erupted into whispers again, buzzing with anticipation. What truth? What secret? What did this mysterious person know? Victor's face twitched with irritation. "What truth?" he demanded. "What are you talking about?" The stranger looked at him, and for the first time a glimmer of steel flashed in their eyes. "You'll see," they whispered, "a perfect cliffhanger." And then, as the tension reached its breaking point, the screen would fade to black. But little did the cruel billionaire know, his life was about to be turned upside down because the stranger standing in the crowd knew a secret about this waitress that would shock everyone. A beat, a breath. Then, let's go back to how this story truly began this morning. Morning sunlight pushed its way through the thin curtains of a tiny apartment tucked on the far edge of the city. An apartment where the paint peeled from the walls, where the floor creaked with every step, where the cold air seeped in through cracked windows that no amount of blankets could fully block. Inside, a young woman moved quietly, careful not to wake her family. Her name was Amara Daniels, 22 years old, black, brilliant, overworked, underestimated by the world. She lived with her mother, Helen, and her 14-year-old younger brother, Micah, in a space no larger than the average hotel storage closet. The fridge hummed weakly, nearly empty. The rent envelope on the counter glared at her like a silent threat. Yet even with everything pressing down on her shoulders, Amara's soul still carried warmth. She still managed to smile, softly, gently, because she believed that kindness, even in poverty, was a form of wealth. This morning, however, her smile struggled. She stood at the stove, heating tea in a dented pot, her brows knitted together with worry. Her mother lay in the small bed against the wall, shivering under layers of blankets. Helen had always been strong, cleaning houses, ironing clothes for clients, working late without complaint. But last month her health spiraled. The doctor diagnosed her with a severe infection. The medicine cost more than Amara earned in a week. "Micah," Amara whispered, gently shaking her brother awake. He blinked, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Morning, is Mom okay today?" Amara hesitated. "Let's check." They crossed the room. Amara placed a hand on her mother's forehead, still burning. Helen stirred weakly. "Sweetheart, you're up early again." "Just making you tea," Amara whispered, forcing brightness into her voice. "You need warmth." Helen coughed, her voice fragile. "You've been working too much, baby. 2 shifts at the hotel, tutoring in the evenings. You shouldn't be carrying everything." Micah looked between them, his eyes glossy with worry. Amara squeezed her mother's hand. "Mom, please, don't worry about me, I'm fine." But she was. Her back ached from standing long hours, her feet burned from walking to save bus fare. Her mind felt stretched thin from stress, exhaustion, fear. Still, she pressed on because she had to. Micah tugged at her sleeve. "Amara, do we have the money for her medicine today?" Her heart clenched. She couldn't lie, not to him. She knelt in front of him, her voice trembling. "Not yet, Micah, but I'm going to get it, I promise." His small shoulders slumped. "But Mom needs it now." "I know," she whispered, pulling him into a hug. "I know." Helen watched them, tears welling in her weary eyes. "You shouldn't have to live like this," she whispered. "You're so smart, Amara. You should be in university, not killing yourself at that hotel." Amara brushed a curl from her mother's forehead. "One day," she said softly, "I'll get there." But in truth, she wasn't sure. Dreams cost money, money she didn't have, her dream, to study linguistics, to work as an interpreter traveling the world. Few people knew it, but Amara spoke multiple languages, English, French, Spanish, and even conversational Mandarin. She practiced every night using free online videos, handwritten notes, and old library books borrowed again and again. Languages brought her joy. They made her feel limitless, even when life kept her boxed in. But those dreams had taken a back seat to survival. This morning, her mother's labored breathing made everything feel even heavier. Micah's voice broke her thoughts. "Amara, the landlord came again last night," she froze. "What did he say?" Micah's throat tightened. "He said if we don't pay the overdue rent by tomorrow, he'll lock us out." Helen shut her eyes, ashamed. "I'm so sorry, Amara." "Don't be," Amara whispered, though her hands shook. "I'll fix this. I swear I will." Micah bit his lip. "But where will we go if he throws us out? We have nowhere else." She hugged him again, holding him tightly, steadying herself through the contact. "No one is throwing us anywhere," she whispered into his hair. "Not while I'm alive." But she had no plan, no money, no miracle, only desperation. She stood and walked to the counter, staring at her nearly empty wallet. 2 crumpled bills, a handful of coins, not enough for medicine, not enough for rent. Her chest tightened painfully. She remembered her shift at the hotel today. She had planned to ask for an extra hour or two, anything to collect a little more pay. But she also remembered the manager's warnings about overstepping, and how mistakes were punished harshly, and how she couldn't afford to lose this job. Still, she had no choice. "Mom," she whispered, brushing her mother's cheek. "I'll be back as soon as my shift ends." Helen grasped her wrist, voice weak. "Amara, don't push yourself today. You look exhausted." "I'm okay," she whispered, though her eyes burned with unshed tears. Micah followed her to the door. "Be careful," he said. "I will." He hesitated, then asked the question that broke her. "What if they shout at you again today?" She stared at him, her heart splintering. "Shouting doesn't hurt me," she lied. "Losing you and Mom would." He hugged her tightly, refusing to let go for a long moment. And then, with a deep breath, she stepped into the hallway. The walk from their apartment to the hotel took an hour through cracked sidewalks, across busy intersections, and past gleaming buildings that felt like they belonged to another planet. Some people walked by with expensive handbags, designer shoes, fancy watches. Some glanced at her worn uniform and looked away quickly. Others didn't notice her at all. But Amara kept walking. She whispered to herself in French, something she often did to calm her nerves. "Tu peux le faire, you can do this." Her breath steadied. Then in Spanish, "No te rindas, don't give up." For a moment, she let herself imagine the life she could have if things were different. Maybe she'd be in a college class right now, raising her hand, answering questions, making friends, building a future that wasn't held together by fear. But reality pulled her back. Cars rushed by. The city buzzed with wealth she couldn't reach. When the towering glass structure of Alcrest International Hotel came into view, her stomach knotted. She paused at the side entrance, the staff entrance, resting a hand against the wall to steady herself. "You have to get through this shift," she whispered. "For Mom, for Micah, for rent, for medicine." She inhaled deeply, then pushed open the door. Inside, the staff hallway smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. The other waiters rushed past her, some offering polite smiles, others too busy to notice her. Her friend and fellow waitress, Janelle, ran up to her. "Girl, you okay?" Janelle asked, frowning. "You look pale." "Just tired," Amara said. "How's the schedule today?" Janelle sighed dramatically. "Chaotic, and guess who's visiting? Some billionaire investor, Victor Hale. Heard of him?" Amara shook her head. "Well, I hope you never do," Janelle whispered. "He's known for being extra. He yelled at 3 managers last time he came." Amara's heart dropped. Janelle continued, "Just stay out of his way. Pretend you're invisible." Invisible. Funny. That's how she felt most days anyway. Amara forced a nod. "I'll be careful." She changed quickly in the locker room, tied her apron neatly, tied up her curls, and stepped into the hotel lobby. It was stunning: crystal chandeliers, polished marble floors, towering pillars, a world built on money, connections, and privilege. A world where people like her weren't seen as equals, only as help. But she entered with her head high. She had work to do. She had a family to save. Little did she know that this day, the day that began with fear, would end with a revelation the world would never forget. Because this was the day Victor Hale would publicly humiliate her. The day she would be called uneducated. The day strangers would laugh at her. The day her dignity would be crushed. But it would also become the day she would shock the entire hotel. The day a stranger would step forward to defend her. The day a hidden truth would surface, one that no one, not even Amara, expected to matter. She straightened her posture, lifted her tray, and walked straight toward her fate. The lobby of Alcrest International Hotel buzzed like a hive, polished shoes tapping against marble, suit jackets swishing, journalists snapping photos, executives speaking in sharp, crisp tones about mergers and market shares. A towering banner read, "Welcome Victor Hale Exclusive Investor Summit." Amara swallowed hard. This was the man Janelle had warned her about, the man known for cruelty disguised as power. The man she needed to avoid, but fate wasn't on her side today. Her supervisor, Mr. Clark, rushed toward her with a clipboard in hand and sweat on his forehead. "Amara, good you're here, we're understaffed. I need you on the front lobby serving VIP refreshments." Her heart dropped. "The lobby, sir, I don't have time for objections," he snapped. "Just do your job, and for God's sake, don't make any mistakes. Victor Hale is in a mood today." Janelle shot her a sympathetic look from across the room. Amara whispered, "I'll try my best." Mr. Clark didn't hear her or didn't care. Amara steadied her shaking hands and picked up a tray of drinks, each glass filled to the brim. Her fingers trembled slightly, but she tightened her grip. "You can do this," she murmured under her breath. She stepped into the center of the lobby, and the noise immediately swallowed her. Cameras flashed. Assistants rushed around Victor. His deep voice rumbled over everything else. "Move these chairs closer. No, not like that. Why is everything always incompetent?" He barked. He was even more intimidating in person. Tall, broad-shouldered, a presence that sucked oxygen from the air. She tried to slip past quietly, pretending to be invisible. But then a voice cut through the crowd. "Waitress, you, the one with the tray." She froze. No, no, please not him. Slowly, she turned. Victor Hale's cold eyes locked onto her like a predator on prey. "You, come here," he ordered. The crowd turned. Dozens of eyes pierced her. Her legs felt heavy as she approached. "Yes, sir," she asked softly. He snatched a glass from her tray, sniffed it with exaggerated disgust, then slammed it back on the tray. "Is this supposed to be cold? Why is it room temperature?" he demanded. I'm not sure, sir. You just nothing," he snapped. "Do you have any understanding of basic service? Were you even trained, or did they pick you up off the street this morning?" A few businessmen chuckled. Heat rushed to her cheeks. "I can get you a fresh glass," she said quietly. "Just a moment," he stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "Are you ignoring me? Answer my question." "No, sir, I wasn't." "Then what? You suddenly forgot how to speak English," the crowd murmured. Phone cameras pointed in their direction. Amara felt the ground quake beneath her. "Sir, I assure you I speak English perfectly well." Victor laughed loudly, cruelly, mocking her pronunciation, mimicking her tone to humiliate her. "Perfectly well, she says," he sneered, imitating her voice. "Look, everyone, we have a scholar among us." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Amara's eyes burned, but she blinked rapidly, refusing to let tears fall. Victor circled her slowly like he was inspecting a defective product. "Tell me something," he said. "Did you even finish high school?" She nodded shakily. "Yes, sir, I graduated." "Barely, I assume," he interrupted. "Because clearly they didn't teach you manners or comprehension or how to keep a tray steady." She tightened her grip, her knuckles whitened. A woman nearby whispered, "She looks terrified." Another replied, "Well, she shouldn't have messed up his drink." The bystanders weren't cruel, just indifferent. Indifference hurt more. Victor moved closer again, his voice dripping venom. "Let me guess you got this job because they needed to fill a quota." Her heart dropped to her stomach. "Sir, that's not—" "Don't interrupt me," he snapped. He leaned closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You don't belong here, not in a place like this, not around people like me." Her lips trembled, her throat closed, her breath hitched. "Sir, please stop," she whispered, but he didn't. He stepped back, raising his voice again. "Actually, let's test this," Victor said with a dark grin. "Say something intelligent. Show us your education." Amara froze. "What?" she asked quietly. "Speak," he commanded. "A sentence, a phrase, something that proves you're not as hopeless as you look." Her mind raced, her heart pounded, her palms sweated. A crowd had formed, a circle of well-dressed vultures watching her break apart. Janelle stood at the edge, helpless, tears in her eyes. Amara swallowed hard, mustering courage. I don't think it's appropriate. Oh, she thinks now, Victor mocked. This is rich. A tall man beside him smirked. Victor, leave her, she's trembling. Victor scoffed. Trembling, then she's in the wrong profession. Actually, she's in the wrong place. He turned to her again. You know what? I'm reporting you to management. You're done here, fired today. A sharp gasp escaped her lips. Her knees buckled slightly. No, please, she whispered. My family, Victor rolled his eyes. Here we go, the sob story, spare me. Amara felt her world collapse. Fired, what about rent? Her mother's medicine, Micah's school lunch, she tried again. Sir, please don't do this, I didn't mean to upset you. Upset me? He boomed, leaning closer. You can't even understand basic English. You're uneducated, incompetent, and completely out of place here. The words sliced through her like knives. Her vision blurred, her breath shook. Still no one stepped forward. Not one person defended her. Her chest tightened painfully as shame washed over her like cold rain. Victor straightened his jacket smugly. Honestly, he said loudly, ensuring everyone could hear, I bet she can't even speak a single language properly, let alone understand the guests we host. He smirked. What languages do you speak, sweetheart, besides broken English? A few guests laughed. Amara lowered her gaze, voice barely audible. I do speak languages. Victor raised a brow. Oh, enlighten us. Her lips parted. She wanted to tell the truth, to defend herself, to fight back. But fear choked her voice. She swallowed. I don't want to be mocked again. Victor barked a laugh. Then stay silent, it suits you. That broke her. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Her body felt hollow. Her spirit cracked. Her hands were shaking so violently the glasses on the tray clinked. Victor's grin widened. There it is, the defeat. She took a step back, breath trembling, and the tray slipped from her hands. Crystal glasses crashed against marble. Liquid splattered across the floor. The sound echoed through the giant lobby like the final blow. Everyone gasped. Victor threw his hands up in mock outrage. Unbelievable, she can't even hold a tray. Someone get her out of my sight. Amara sank to her knees on the cold floor, scrambling to gather the shattered pieces with shaking hands. The glass cut her skin. Blood mixed with the spilled drinks. She didn't care. She couldn't think. She couldn't breathe. Her tears dripped onto the shards. The humiliation was complete. Victor towered over her. This is what happens, he declared proudly, when you hire people who don't belong here, uneducated, untrained, incompetent. Stop. A voice sliced through the chaos, the same voice from the hook, calm, cold, commanding. Every head turned. A figure began walking through the crowd, tall, elegant, carrying a presence that made even Victor pause. The stranger's footsteps echoed across the marble floor. Click, click, click. They approached Amara, kneeling beside her without hesitation. Their hand rested gently on her shoulder. You don't need to pick that up, the stranger said softly. Not like this, not today. Amara froze, her breath caught. She looked up into eyes filled with compassion, real compassion. The stranger rose to their full height, turning slowly to face Victor, and the entire room fell silent. Enough, the stranger repeated, their voice steady as ice. Victor scoffed, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. And who, he demanded, do you think you are? The stranger stepped closer, face calm, posture unshakable. You'll find out, they said. And when you do, you'll regret every word you just said to her. Victor's smirk faltered. The crowd stiffened. A storm was brewing, one about to reveal a truth no one expected. And this was only the beginning. The lobby was suddenly deathly silent. Every eye locked on the figure standing tall in the center, the stranger whose calm had shattered Victor Hale's self-assured dominance. Amara's chest heaved. Her hands were still shaking, fingers lightly pressed against the fragments of broken glass. She wanted to speak, but words failed her. She had never seen such poise in a human being, a presence that seemed to command the room without raising a voice or flexing an ounce of force. The stranger's eyes softened as they looked down at her. You're safe, they said quietly. Not one person here has the right to treat you like that. Amara blinked, uncertain whether to hope or to collapse. Thank you, she stammered. The stranger nodded gently and then turned toward Victor, who had straightened his tie, trying and failing to reclaim control. Victor's usual arrogance faltered as he realized that this person radiated a power he had never faced before. Victor's voice carried over the crowd. And who exactly are you to tell me what to do? I don't even know you. The stranger's smile was faint but chilling in its precision. Do you know what happens, they said calmly, when someone humiliates the wrong person in the wrong room? Victor laughed nervously. Oh, please, you don't scare me. I make deals, I control markets. I don't take lessons from strangers. Amara watched as the stranger's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but with unshakable certainty. Perhaps you should meet me properly then, the stranger said. I am Victor Hale's worst mistake. The crowd murmured. Whispers ricocheted off the marble walls. Victor's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, lowering his voice in a menacing growl. "Worst mistake, you're threatening me?" The stranger shook their head slowly. "No threat necessary. You've already exposed your character to everyone here. Now it's time they understand the truth." Victor smirked nervously, though beads of sweat had begun forming along his temple. He gestured toward Amara, trying to regain some of his earlier dominance. "And what exactly is the truth about her?" He asked, the words dripping with arrogance. The stranger turned toward Amara, giving her a small, reassuring nod. "Tell them," they whispered. Amara's throat was dry. Her mind raced. Her heart pounded like a drum. But the stranger's calm confidence bolstered her. Suddenly, the humiliation, the fear, the weight of every sneer that had been directed at her seemed to transform into something else: courage. I speak multiple languages," Amara began, voice quivering but rising steadily. "I speak English, French, Spanish, and Mandarin." The crowd shifted uncomfortably, murmuring in disbelief. Victor's smirk faltered slightly. "I've studied languages since I was a child," she continued, gaining strength. "I've never had a luxurious life, but I've worked hard, I've learned, I've pushed myself, and I won't let anyone—" Victor's face twisted with a mix of anger and disbelief. "So what? You're some kind of language prodigy? Big deal. That doesn't make you qualified to serve in a five-star hotel?" Amara took a deep breath. She met his gaze and spoke clearly. "Sir, being uneducated is not defined by your money, your arrogance, or your job title. Education is in effort, knowledge, understanding, respect. And I have those even if you refuse to see it." The stranger stepped forward, their presence amplifying the weight of Amara's words. Their voice rang out, smooth and commanding. "Victor Hale, it's clear you have underestimated someone you should have never doubted." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Who do you think you are, standing there with such authority? I don't even know you." The stranger's lips curled into a calm, controlled smile. Then slowly, deliberately, they lifted a hand to the crowd and declared, "I am the CEO of this entire company." The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Gasps erupted. Cameras clicked furiously. Victor froze, his face turned pale, eyes widening with shock and disbelief. "I what?" he stammered. "I am the CEO," the stranger repeated, their voice steady, unshakable. "And you, Victor Hale, have just publicly humiliated an employee of mine, an employee who has been working under tremendous circumstances and demonstrating integrity, intelligence, and dignity at every turn." The crowd's murmurs turned into whispers of awe and disbelief. Victor's previous smugness evaporated. You are the CEO?" he asked, voice trembling. "Yes," the stranger said, stepping closer to Amara and placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. "And this young woman," they said, sweeping their gaze over the lobby, "has been serving people like you not because she owes them anything, but because she is resilient, brave, and exceptional. And now she has my full support." Victor's lips pressed into a thin line. He attempted to muster control. This is preposterous." "You can't just—" The CEO held up a hand, cutting him off effortlessly. "Watch closely, Victor," they said, voice calm but filled with authority that silenced even the whispers in the crowd. "You will face immediate consequences for your actions, and you will do so in full view of everyone who witnessed them." Victor stumbled backwards slightly. He looked around at the crowd, now filled with astonishment and judgment. His reputation, the thing he valued above all, was unraveling in real time. Amara felt tears spring to her eyes again, but this time they were tears of relief. She had not just survived humiliation. She had been defended not by a stranger, but by someone powerful enough to change everything in an instant. Victor's voice quivered with fury and fear. You can't do this. I'm. The CEO's gaze turned icy. "You've already done it, Victor. You humiliated a hardworking employee. You mocked her in front of your peers. You assumed that wealth and arrogance could intimidate everyone. That ends now." The crowd held their breath as the CEO leaned closer to Victor. "You are hereby suspended indefinitely, effective immediately. Your actions will be reviewed by the board, and you will issue a formal apology to this young woman not because I asked you to, but because it is the right thing to do." Victor's face paled. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. The authority he had wielded like a weapon for decades crumbled in mere seconds. Amara's vision blurred as the CEO turned to her. "Amara," they said softly, their tone warm and genuine, "you did not deserve what he said or how he treated you, but today you showed courage. You reminded us all what true intelligence and dignity look like." Amara swallowed hard, voice trembling. Thank you so much. I don't even know what to say." The CEO smiled gently. "You don't have to say anything. You've already said enough, through your words, your composure, and your strength. Victor, humiliated and defeated, muttered something under his breath, then was guided away by hotel security. Cameras captured every step of his retreat, broadcasting the moment he had lost all power over the very lobby he had dominated minutes ago. The CEO placed a hand on Amara's shoulder once more. "From this moment forward," they said, voice calm but unwavering, "you and your family will have my full protection. Your talents, your dedication, and your integrity will no longer be overlooked." Amara's knees felt weak. She looked up at the CEO, still struggling to comprehend what had just happened. "Full protection?" she whispered. "Yes," the CEO said with certainty. "You will have resources, education, and opportunities that were previously out of reach. Your mother's health will be cared for, your brother's schooling will be secured, and you will have the chance to study your languages to your heart's content." Amara's hands flew to her face. Tears spilled freely now, but these were tears of joy and relief. I don't know how to thank you," she sobbed. "You don't need to," the CEO replied gently. "Live boldly, learn everything you can, and never let anyone make you feel small again." Amara nodded, her entire being shaking. She had faced the cruelest public humiliation imaginable, and now the very same room that had jeered at her witnessed her dignity being restored in the most profound way. Victor Hale, once arrogant and untouchable, had been brought to his knees, not by revenge, but by truth, justice, and the unwavering power of integrity. And in that moment, Amara knew her life was about to change forever. The lobby buzzed in a new way now, not with mockery, but with awe. Guests whispered excitedly, cameras snapped incessantly, and hotel staff exchanged glances of disbelief. Victor Hale, once the embodiment of arrogance and cruelty, was being escorted by security, his face pale and tight with suppressed fury. Amara stood in the center of the lobby, trembling, still holding the empty tray, but feeling a warmth she had never known. The CEO, her savior, remained beside her, calm and reassuring. Every glance they cast at her carried a profound respect, a recognition of the resilience she had displayed. Victor, glowering, tried one last feeble protest. This is outrageous. You can't do this to me." The CEO turned to him, voice icy and firm. "Victor Hale, your actions today were inexcusable. You humiliated an employee in front of dozens of people, and your behavior has been documented for the board. Your suspension is immediate, and you will face a formal hearing. Until then, you will have no access to company resources or authority. Do you understand?" Victor swallowed hard, his arrogance finally crumbling. I understand." "Good." The CEO turned to Amara, their tone gentle. "Now let's ensure that justice is meaningful and not just symbolic." Amara blinked, tears welling. "What do you mean?" The CEO smiled. "It's not enough to simply reprimand him. The damage he caused must be repaired. And you, your family, should never have to live in fear or struggle because of others' cruelty. That begins today." Later that afternoon, Amara found herself in a private office high above the city, the skyline stretching endlessly beyond the glass walls. Her hands still shook, but this time with anticipation rather than fear. The CEO sat across from her, a warm cup of tea in their hands, eyes attentive and patient. "Amara," the CEO began, their voice calm and deliberate, "you've endured far too much. Today, you've shown everyone, your colleagues, your peers, and even those who tried to belittle you, that intelligence, courage, and integrity cannot be measured by wealth or appearance." Amara's voice trembled as she whispered, I never imagined someone like you would step in or even know about me." The CEO chuckled softly. "I know many things, but what matters most is that I recognize the potential in people who have been overlooked. You are exceptional, Amara, and it's time the world saw it too." She swallowed hard, her emotions catching in her throat. "But my family, the bills, my mother's medicine, I've been barely keeping us afloat. How can this really change?" The CEO leaned forward, placing a reassuring hand on hers. "We start with immediate support. Your mother will receive the best medical care available. Your brother will attend the school you've always hoped for. And you will have the opportunity to study your languages, to pursue your dreams without the weight of poverty holding you back." Amara's eyes filled with tears of relief and disbelief. I don't know how to thank you. I don't even know where to begin." The CEO smiled gently. "Live, learn, give back. That's all the thanks you need. You've already shown gratitude through your courage today." A few days later, Victor Hale was summoned for the board review. Every word he had said, every action he had taken had been meticulously documented. The board, along with HR, reviewed the evidence and unanimously upheld the CEO's decision. Victor was fired from his position, and his reputation suffered irreparable damage. News outlets reported the story. Billionaire executive fired after humiliating employee in luxury hotel lobby. Social media erupted, praising the courage of the young waitress and the decisive intervention of the CEO. Meanwhile, Amara's life began to change in ways she had never dreamed. Her mother received immediate treatment for her infection, thanks to a full medical plan arranged by the CEO. Micah was enrolled in an excellent school with tutoring support, ensuring he could thrive academically. And Amara herself, the CEO personally enrolled her in a specialized language program, connecting her with world-class tutors in French, Spanish, Mandarin, and even Arabic. Her evenings were no longer spent exhausted from laborious shifts, but in study and discovery, her natural talent for languages blossoming. One afternoon, while reviewing her lessons in a bright, sunlit office provided by the company, Amara found herself speaking fluently in Mandarin to a native instructor via video call. The instructor looked astonished. "You're remarkable," the instructor said. "Your pronunciation is flawless, and your comprehension, exceptional. Most students take years to reach this level." Amara smiled softly, pride swelling in her chest. "Thank you. I've worked hard, but I've had support now. That makes all the difference." The CEO visited often, checking on her progress and encouraging her to embrace every opportunity. One late evening, they found Amara sitting at a desk, notes scattered, tracing the tones of Mandarin characters. "You've come a long way," the CEO said, standing in the doorway with a warm smile. Amara looked up, her eyes shining. "I feel like I'm finally learning to breathe without fear, like I can finally chase what I've always wanted." The CEO walked over and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You can chase it, Amara. You deserve every opportunity, and one day you'll look back and realize that the world that once tried to humiliate you was simply making room for your greatness." Tears glimmered in Amara's eyes. "I want to help others too," she whispered. "To give them a chance like you gave me." The CEO nodded. "And you will. That is the true measure of success, not wealth, not power, but the impact you have on others' lives." Weeks turned into months, and Amara flourished. Her mother regained her strength and smiled again, the shadow of illness lifted. Micah excelled in school, his confidence growing alongside his sister, S. And Amara, once a timid, overworked waitress, now walked with confidence, speaking multiple languages, tutoring others, and preparing for university scholarships around the world. One evening, after a particularly successful tutoring session with international students, Amara returned home to her mother. Helen embraced her tightly. "Amara, look at you," her mother whispered. "I don't know how to say it, but I am so proud." Amara hugged her back, tears streaming freely. "Mom, I couldn't have done it without the help we got, but I promise from now on nothing will stop us, nothing will make us small again." Helen smiled through her tears. "You've always been strong, Amara, you just needed someone to see it." Amara thought of the CEO, the stranger who had stepped into her life, changed her trajectory, and ensured justice was served. She whispered softly to herself, "Thank you for believing in me." And deep down, she knew that life would never be the same. Because sometimes one act of courage and one act of kindness could rewrite an entire future. Amara had faced the cruelty of arrogance and indifference. She had been humiliated in front of dozens of people. But through resilience, talent, and the timely intervention of a compassionate savior, she had not only survived, she had triumphed. The story of that day, the day Victor Hale had mocked her as uneducated, became a legend in the company. It was told again and again as an example of justice, courage, and the transformative power of empathy. And Amara, once a young woman weighed down by poverty and fear, now stood tall, her life filled with hope, opportunity, and a chance to make a difference in the world. 5 years had passed since the infamous day at International Hotel, the day that had begun with humiliation and fear, and ended with a revelation that would forever alter Amara Daniels' life. The woman who had once crouched on the cold marble floor, tray in hand, trembling as Victor Hale mocked her, now walked confidently through the same city streets that had once felt impossibly hostile. Her stride was measured, her head held high, a quiet confidence radiating from every gesture. She no longer carried the invisible weight of shame or the heavy burden of survival alone. She had grown, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, and with that growth came purpose. Amara had earned her degree in linguistics with honors from a prestigious university. Her fluency in English, French, Spanish, and Mandarin had become more than a skill. It had become a bridge between cultures, a tool to empower others. She had even added Arabic and Italian to her repertoire, a testament to her relentless dedication. Her mother, Helen, now vibrant and strong, often accompanied her to international events where Amara represented charitable foundations she had founded to support education for underprivileged children. Micah, her younger brother, had flourished into a confident, articulate teenager, a young man with dreams of becoming a doctor, inspired by his mother's courage and his sister's perseverance. One crisp afternoon, Amara walked through the lobby of the very hotel where her life had changed forever. The chandeliers glinted in the sunlight and polished floors reflected the bustling activity. But Amara didn't see luxury or wealth, she saw opportunity. A group of young students had joined her for a language workshop. She guided them through pronunciation drills in Mandarin, paused to translate idioms into French, and laughed warmly when a student mispronounced a word. The confidence in her voice, the patience in her eyes, made every child in the room feel seen and capable. After the session, she stepped into the grand lobby and paused. Memories surged, the jeers, the mocking laughter, the tray slipping from her hands, and the cold, cruel voice of Victor Hale. She swallowed hard, but her chest swelled with triumph. She had survived that day, yes, but more importantly, she had transcended it. From behind, a familiar voice spoke, calm and steady, carrying a weight of authority yet warmth. "You've grown, Amara." She turned to see the CEO standing there, as dignified and composed as ever. Their presence was still commanding, but now, instead of awe, she felt a profound comfort. I think so," Amara said, a soft smile crossing her face. "I still can't believe how far things have come. Sometimes it feels like a dream." The CEO chuckled softly. "It's no dream, it's your hard work and courage. I merely gave you the opportunity to shine." Amara shook her head gently. "You gave me more than opportunity. You gave me dignity, and you changed my family's life." The CEO's eyes glimmered. "That is what truly matters. Dignity is not granted lightly, but earned and defended. You've done both." They stood together in the sunlight streaming through the windows. The lobby that had once been a stage for humiliation was now a place of triumph. Amara's eyes fell on a polished marble floor, faintly reflecting the figures above. She saw not the girl who had crouched, trembling, but the woman she had become, educated, respected, compassionate, and unafraid. That evening, Amara returned home, the streets of the city bustling around her. She held her mother's hand and glanced at her younger brother walking beside them. Micah, now a confident teenager, chatted animatedly about his day at school. Helen's eyes shone with pride and relief, the shadows of sickness and worry long gone. At home, they sat together for dinner, something Amara had always dreamed of but had rarely experienced in those early days of scarcity. The table was full, warm food, laughter, and the ease of a family free from the constant shadow of survival. Helen reached across the table, grasping Amara's hand. "You know, baby, I always believed in you even when life was too hard, but I never imagined the world would finally see what I saw." Amara's eyes glistened. "It wasn't just me, Mom. It was people like the CEO who gave me a chance, who refused to let someone else's cruelty define me." Micah chimed in, excitement in his voice. "And look at you now. You're traveling, teaching, helping kids everywhere. You're incredible, Amara." Amara laughed softly, a sound full of relief and joy. "I had to become incredible. I didn't want to just survive. I wanted to live fully, and I wanted us to thrive." Weeks later, Amara stood on a stage at a prestigious international education conference. The audience was filled with educators, business leaders, and philanthropists. She spoke with ease and passion, weaving in her own story of hardship, resilience, and the transformative power of opportunity. "Education," she said, her voice firm and clear, "is not merely about grades or degrees. It's about recognizing potential in places society often ignores. It's about courage, determination, and the kindness of those willing to lift others when they stumble." The audience applauded, moved by her story and inspired by her message. Cameras flashed, and social media buzzed with posts celebrating the young woman who had once been mocked as uneducated, yet now stood as a symbol of triumph and hope. Amara glanced at the front row, and her eyes met those of the CEO. They nodded subtly, a shared understanding passing between them, one of gratitude, pride, and the knowledge that lives could truly change when compassion and justice intersected. Later that night, Amara returned to her family's apartment, a cozy, renovated space that was now warm, bright, and safe. She watched her mother read quietly by the window and Micah practice his violin. For the first time in her life, she felt a deep, unshakable peace. She whispered softly, "We made it, all of us." Helen looked up and smiled, tears glinting in her eyes. Yes, baby, we really did. Micah added, you made us believe we could do more than just survive. You made us dream. Amara nodded, a lump in her throat. And I will keep dreaming, not just for me, but for everyone who has ever been told they're less than. Every act of cruelty I faced, every moment of doubt, will be a reminder to lift others instead of tear them down. A few years from that evening, Amara had become more than a symbol. She had become a beacon. Her foundation now supported hundreds of children from underprivileged backgrounds, helping them access education, healthcare, and opportunities to excel. She traveled internationally, delivering lectures, tutoring students, and mentoring young women and men who, like her, had faced despair but had the potential for greatness. She had proven that adversity did not define destiny, that cruelty could be met with dignity, and that even the most overwhelming obstacles could be overcome with courage, resilience, and the kindness of those willing to intervene. And as she walked through her office one bright morning, Amara paused at a large photo on the wall, the day in the hotel lobby, the shattered glasses, and the CEO standing beside her. She smiled softly. I will never forget this moment, she whispered to herself. Because this is where everything changed, and this is where everything began. Sometimes the world will try to humiliate you, to make you feel small and unworthy. But dignity, courage, and knowledge are far more powerful than wealth or arrogance. One act of kindness, one person willing to intervene, can transform a life of despair into a future filled with hope. And as Amara learned, the true measure of greatness is not in wealth, power, or privilege, but in the impact we have on others and the courage to rise even when the world expects us to fall. Humanity transcends race, wealth, and status, and every person, no matter how overlooked, has the power to shock the world with their brilliance and resilience.